When we think of an argument, we think of people fighting on opposing sides of an issue. But this is not the only definition of an argument, and it's not even the best one. In this presentation, we're going to talk about arguments, reasoning, and evidence, all of which will be an important part of your persuasive speech and research paper. Let's get started. Click the arrow to advance to the next slide. An argument, implicitly or explicitly, makes a claim and supports it with strong reasoning and evidence from the sources. Reasoning is the thought process that a speaker, researcher, or audience member goes through to draw conclusions from the evidence. Evidence can be found in statistics, testimonials, facts, narratives, and more from experts and credible sources. This evidence can be verified when proper citations are given and is used to advance the argument. As you can see, reasoning and evidence are important parts of an argument. Without evidence, your audience cannot make judgments about your argument. If an audience doesn't or can't draw conclusions from the evidence, your argument has no power. Let's learn another term. Click the arrow to advance to the next slide. Syllogism is the basic structure of an argument. So while we know that reasoning and evidence support an argument, a syllogistic argument allows the audience to follow your thought process. There are three parts to a syllogistic argument. First is the major premise. This is a statement that is certain. Remember when we talked about the probability model? It's best to make statements that are almost always true and avoid absolutions. This is a good rule to follow here. Second is the minor premise, which makes a specific statement related to the major premise. Third is the conclusion, which comes to a logical end as a result of the major and minor premise. See pages 220 to 221 in your textbook for good and bad examples of syllogism. Once you feel comfortable with this topic, click the arrow to go to the next slide to learn about fallacies. A fallacy is an error in reasoning and evidence that may deceive your audience. You should consider what claims you're making and be sure that what you're saying is, in almost every case, true. If an audience member could challenge you or cite even one instance of what you claim to be an absolute is not or not true, your credibility is compromised. So the first suggestion here is to avoid absolutions. Avoid saying something that is always or never true. Next, consider your evidence carefully. Make sure that all of your evidence is credible, consistent, accurate, and relevant. If your evidence doesn't follow your claim, the non sequitur fallacy, it isn't relevant to mention in your speech or paper. Also, make sure that your evidence is sufficient. As the speaker and author, you have the burden of proof. Have you provided enough evidence to support your claim? Does it come from a variety of sources? If test subjects are involved, is the sample random? Remember also, correlation is not causation. Just because something usually happens in correlation with another event does not imply that it is the cause. Fallacies can be difficult to understand, but they are a part of our everyday life. In the next slide, you will find a video from the PBS Idea channel that describes 5 common fallacies, especially in regard to internet arguments, which happen more and more with the increased use and availability of social media. Click the arrow to view the video, which will start automatically. It's time for the chapter checkup. Formulate a syllogistic claim for your topic, then assess it for accuracy, relevance, etc. You can log this in your research journal on Blackboard and make any notes you wish to remember. Next, consider what evidence you've already collected. Check it for consistency. Is there anything that you would question about your evidence? If so, your audience will probably question it too. This exercise will take some time, so feel free to end this video and get to work. Click the arrow to advance to the next slide. If you have any questions or would like more information or to discuss anything you've learned in this presentation, feel free to send me an email or a text message or call me.